Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Animas Corporation, providing insulin delivery products for people living with diabetes and part of the One Touch family. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes with the world's first continuous glucose monitoring system that sends glucose readings directly to your compatible smart device. Live life on your own terms with Dexcom. Hey, it's Stacey. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, a child with type 1 diabetes who's allergic to insulin. How does this happen? What do? A conversation with Jack's mom about an ongoing mystery.
My husband and I joke that we never dreamed we would be wishing for just type 1, because that's so challenging by itself.
We'll bring you up to date on Jack's situation right now, the symptoms, the treatments, the frustrations of looking for answers. And we'll talk about the amazing support the family is receiving from our community all over the world. It all starts now on Diabetes Connections. Welcome to Diabetes Connections. I'm Stacey Sims. If you're new to the show, what we try to do here is educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes through stories of connection, bringing you amazing people who are doing incredible things while living with type 1, as well as featuring everyday people who are not writing bestsellers or giving TED Talks, but just trying to live life the best that they can with diabetes. We also frequently feature the technology companies and innovators in our community trying to change lives for the better. And today we're going to be talking to one family that has a very rare but not entirely unique situation. I was very surprised to find this allergy to insulin. It's incredible to me to think about that. And we'll be talking about some of the reasons why this can happen or how it happens and what can be done. Frankly, the answer is not very much, but we will be sharing that story with you and talking with Jaclyn Smith, Jack's mom. Jack is 8. Well, actually, correct that. Jack just had a birthday a couple of days ago, so Jack is 9. And in one of those funny twists, I had learned about this family's story, like many of you have. Many of you have seen this perhaps on Facebook. Beyond Type 1 also did a very large article about it, looking for help about a month ago. I first heard about it that way, and then as I worked backwards, I found that Jaclyn is in my local group. It was so strange because, you recognize the names, but we don't know everyone in person. My local Facebook group has 450 people right now. Charlotte is a pretty big town, and our local group is all about geography, so we pull from all the nearby cities as well. But man, I hadn't met her in person, and she hadn't really posted about this much in the local group. So when we started talking, I couldn't believe she lives 15, 20 minutes from me. So it was just one of those crazy things, and I'm thrilled, if that's the right word, I'm thrilled to be sharing her family story in the hope that maybe it helps somebody else. Maybe they find some help that hasn't been out there, and just so we can all learn more about a very unusual case. So first, let me tell you a little bit about our sponsor, about Animas. I love working with Animas, you know that, and after nearly 10 years, I love my son's Animas insulin pump. I met a lot of people recently. We had a bowling event here in our local area to learn about camp and just have some fun and go bowling. And it was great to hear why so many of you love the Animas experience as well. And they offer a choice of insulin pumps, so you can choose the one that's right for you or for your child. And with kids, it's great. The Animas pumps really fit an active life. I love talking about our experience with Animas. They make it easy with great products and incredible customer service. To find out more about Animas, just go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Animas, part of the One Touch family logo. Want to bring you up to date on something exciting that happened. I announced this on Facebook Live, if that's the right way to say this, last week. And you can go back and go to Diabetes Connections on Facebook, and please follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all the social media places where you can find us. I'm on Instagram as well. But I posted this on Facebook Live. I am going to be giving the closing keynote at the Children with Diabetes Friends for Life conference this summer. So excited about this. You've heard me talk about Friends for Life before. This is the largest family diabetes conference, I believe, in the world. It's huge. And I'm very excited to be giving the closing keynote. I'm going to be talking about making connections when you get home, when you are finished with the conference. What do you do now after being with all these wonderful people who understand you? Then you go home. How do you keep that going? So I've given this presentation before. It's actually called Diabetes Connections, and it predates the podcast. But, I add to it. I change it up all the time. And what I'd like to do this time around is add you to it. I want to know how you have made connections in your hometown. How have you found people who are touched by type 1? Whether you're a mom or dad of a kid, whether you're a young adult or an older adult, an athlete, how you found the people that are your tribe, right? How do you find each other once you get home? Let me know your ideas. You can email me, Stacey@diabetes-connections.com, or I'm going to have a way that you can go to the website or the Facebook page. It'll be very obvious. Click on it and you can record whatever it is you want to say. And don't worry about making it perfect. I'll edit it and it'll all sound great, but it'll just be like leaving a voicemail message. I was going to say leaving an answering machine message. Yeah, remember that? And I also had a phone on the wall with a cord. Memories. But it'll be very easy to do, and you can just leave me your thoughts on that, and I'll continue to post on Facebook and Twitter to make that easy for you. But I would really love to hear from you. How do you find people in your community, and what do you do once you're together? Do you hang out? Do you go to dinner? Do you do activities? What works for you, and how can we help other people get that kind of support? And then I really hope you come out to Friends for Life. It is right after July 4th. That's when the conference is. I'll link up all the information at diabetes-connections.com. I'm speaking on Friday during the conference, and I'll be attending that week as well. And it's always so much fun. It's at Disney World in July. Yeah, I know it's going to be 5,000 degrees, but it's great. Quick word from Dexcom now, our other sponsor. And we have been dealing with type 1 diabetes for 10 years now, more than 10 years. Benny was diagnosed in December of 2006, just before he turned 2. I'd heard about the teen years, but like a lot of parents, I thought we'd be different. Ha, 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 ha. I was so foolish. Here we are, and here come some incredible physical changes and wild hormone swings. He would be mortified. Don't tell him I said that. But I can't imagine managing diabetes during this crazy time without the Dexcom continuous glucose monitoring system. We can react more quickly to highs and lows, adjust insulin doses with advice from our endocrinologist. I know the G5 Mobile is helping to improve Benny's A1C. CGM-based treatment requires finger sticks for the calibration, may result in hypoglycemia if calibration not performed or symptoms expectations do not match CGM readings. For more information, go to Dexcom.com. My guest today is dealing with a situation I didn't know was possible. Maybe you didn't either. How can someone be allergic to insulin? This isn't a traditional medication. This is a substance that exists in the body. It's a hormone. What happens when your body not only attacks itself, causing type 1 diabetes, but then starts rejecting the very substance you need to stay healthy, to stay alive? That's what the Smith family, right here in North Carolina, is going through. Jaclyn and Daniel Smith, the parents, Jack and Maddie, the kids, brother and sister. Jack was diagnosed with type 1 when he was 2. He had a health scare in kindergarten, but he didn't have this allergic reaction to insulin until recently. And Jack just turned 9 this past Sunday, just a couple of days ago. I recorded this interview with his mother, Jaclyn, 1 week ago. They were scheduled to go back to Duke University for more treatment, so we'll update as we can. And I've since learned that about 2% of people with type 1 do have an insulin allergy, but it's almost always tied to a type of insulin. They're able to switch and can continue dosing without issues. Apparently, this was a much bigger problem prior to the mid-'80s, in the days of pork and beef-derived insulin. They used to get it from animals. And the Jaclyn Center writes, insulin allergy was a relatively common occurrence. However, since the use of recombinant human insulin has become pervasive, the number of people allergic to insulin has declined enormously. Then they talk about how, generally speaking, you can switch the type of insulin. They go on to say, For patients whose allergy to insulin is universal, slow, gradual desensitization is often prescribed. This involves taking minute doses of insulin, offered down to a fraction of a unit. The dose is increased when the patient is able to tolerate the current volume of insulin without exhibiting symptoms. And then they go on to talk about steroids, antihistamines. And I actually know a woman in our local area who is allergic to insulin, but she says she's able to manage with antihistamines. This is a different kind of case with Jack. As you'll hear, Jack has reactions to all available insulins, all methods of injection or infusion. And I wanted to read that from Jaclyn. I know this is a longer setup than usual. I apologize, but I just wanted to have all of the information because this is a very, very unusual case. Jaclyn, thank you so much for joining me to share your story. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Sure.
Let's start at the beginning if we could. There's a lot to get to here. But when was Jack diagnosed with type 1? It wasn't recently, right?
No, so he was 2.5 years old. So September the 8th, 2010 is when he was diagnosed. And so, yeah, this challenge has been a very recent one for us.
So initially, then, there weren't allergies, there weren't issues, things like that. It was more of a typical, just the craziness of a toddler being diagnosed with type 1.
Correct, yes. Yes, my husband and I joke that we never dreamed we would be wishing for just type 1, because that's so challenging by itself. But, yeah, so no, completely normal. He was diagnosed at 2.5. We caught it fairly early. I'm a nurse, so I saw the signs early, and, he was diagnosed fairly early. We also started pumping pretty early because he was so small and his dosage requirements were so small. We found that the pump was, better suited for him. So he started pumping within 3 months of diagnosis. And we were initially on the Animas Ping, and then we transitioned to the Omnipod. As he got older and got more involved in sports, it was just kind of easier for us to be tubeless. So yes, he has had it for 6.5 years now.
All right. And what happened? What were the first signs that something more difficult was going on?
Yeah. So, hindsight's always 20/20. So looking back, we had a couple occurrences in the past, year or so where we would not get 3 days out of a pod. And we talked to Endo about it when we would go. One of the questions you complete normally is, are you having any site issues? And so we would say, every now and then we'll notice blood sugars just soaring, and we'll change a pod, and there'll be a hard knot, a hard red, painful knot at the insertion site. And so, Endo and we as well just kind of chalked it up to, an 8-year-old active boy, maybe some accidental trauma where it just kind of got dislodged or, knocked. And so oftentimes there would be bruising around the insertion site as well. So we just kind of chalked it up to just some, accidental trauma. But we noticed about late October, early November that we weren't getting 3 days out of any site. And so he is kind of choosy about where he likes to wear them. And I will say he has very little sub-Q. He's a very muscular kid. So, we're kind of limited. We kind of do backs of the arms and, outer aspects of the thigh. He hates belly and he hates buttock sites. So we thought at first it was a rotation issue and we needed to be a little bit more diligent about switching out sites. And by December, it got to where we weren't even getting 24 hours out of a site. So we saw his endocrinologist December 22nd, and she said it must be the Omnipod, it must be the plastic or Teflon or some part of the plastic cannula that's remaining under his skin. So the first step is to try to transition to a stainless steel inset, which meant we would have to trial either T-Slim or Medtronic or one of those. So we were very lucky that we spoke to the T-Slim representative. Justin is his name, and he was amazing, above and beyond. And so at this point, we're December 22nd, and insurance is not wanting to try to expedite a pump change before the calendar year ended. And so he said, well, you know what, let's just do a loaner pump and see how things go while we're working on the insurance piece. They were above and beyond, worked with us and said, use this loaner pump with the detach. Is it inset detach?
The contact detach, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Contact detached, that's stainless steel, and see how that works. So, we met the lovely lady at Panera, and we did a site change and bolused him for his lunch there, got home, and he was like, it's hurting. So the pain was the initial, I probably should back up and say, so it starts with pain, and then the pain turns into a red raised, inflamed area. And then, of course, that leads to poor absorption because there's so much inflammation there that there's just no insulin being absorbed. So we got home. We thought, well, maybe it was just, user error. It's my first time doing the straight inset with, you have to push it in with your hand. So it's not what I'm used to with Omnipod. And so we did a site change again. And so 3 different sites, exact same thing. So I called endocrinology and said, okay, it doesn't appear to be the plastic cannula. We're doing the same thing with stainless steel. At that point, they said we probably should do a pump break and to switch back to injections. So we did, and the first dose of Lantus was 12 units. I injected that, and immediately he said it felt like fire ants stinging him from the inside.
Oh, my gosh.
And so immediately so I say immediately. So the pain is immediate. 30 to 60 minutes later, you will feel a wheal, or it's a hive. The term is wheal, but it's a red raised plaque that you can feel. The term is induration. And so that stays there for 4 to 8 hours or so. And then that usually goes away. And what remains is this hard, like under the tissue knot that is really painful. And that can stay for a number of days. That first Lantus injection, that spot stayed for 8 days.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So at that point they said, what is this? This doesn't happen. This happens in less than 1%. You can't be allergic to insulin. So we tried Levemir, exact same thing. We tried Humalog, exact same thing. Apidra. We've now tried Humulin R. We've also tried the new Tresiba, long-acting, and he responds exactly the same to everything. So we were referred to an allergist who looked at us and said, yeah, he's reacting to something, but I don't know how to fix it. He referred us to a dermatologist who did a skin biopsy, and under the microscope, she said that lymphocytes and eosinophils were there. So
okay, wait, what does that mean, though?
Yeah,
sorry,
so those are parts. No, I know, and I'm sorry. So yeah, back me up. Those are parts of your white blood cells that are a part of your immune system, so part of your defense mechanisms. And so you see lymphocytes usually elevated with like a viral infection. You'll see more lymphocytes, and then the eosinophils are usually your like allergic response. So eosinophils is like they're high with an allergic response. But we've since been referred to Duke, and we've seen when we go there, like 20 doctors will come in, all the residents and all the fellows, and they're just like, this is so rare. But they're trying to decide at this point whether, I guess there are 4 types of an allergic reaction, or a hypersensitivity response is what they're calling it. So type 1 is your most common, where, I'm allergic to peanuts. When I ingest peanuts, I get hives, my throat closes, that sort of thing. Type 4 hypersensitivity is actually type 1 diabetes is a type 4 hypersensitivity. So it's, very fine line between allergy and autoimmunity, and, they're very, woven together. Things like lupus fall in a type 4, rheumatoid arthritis, ITP, which is immune thrombocytopenia, which Jack also had in kindergarten. So
what is that?
That's a process. Yeah, so that's a process where the immune system attacks the platelets. So for whatever reason, the immune system gets confused, thinks that platelets are bad guys, and breaks them down. And so he, in kindergarten, started bruising all over. It was really, really bad. So they thought he had leukemia. It was really, really bad. So they did some blood work, and they said, his red blood cells are normal, his white blood cells are normal, but your platelets are supposed to be anywhere between 250 and 400. His were 9. So we were admitted immediately. And it was about 3 years after he was diagnosed with ITP. And the treatment was actually IVIG, which is a blood product. Basically, when you donate blood, they can separate that blood out into different things. And one of the things they can separate out is immunoglobulins, which is basically good immune system cells. So he received that treatment for the ITP in kindergarten. So
did it work? I mean,
next step,
did it make him better? I don't know enough about it.
So yeah, it did work. So ITP is pretty rare as well. It's extremely rare in a type 1 diabetic. But yes, the treatment did work. So it only took 1 infusion of the IVIG, and then within a couple of days, his platelets were up, and we had to go see the hematologist, and they screened him every 6 months for a couple times. And so they said, yes, it had resolved. Wow. So Duke, at this point, we've tried some other things, and I'll back up and tell you what all we've done. But at this point, this Thursday, we go to try IVIG to see if it will treat what's going on right now.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're going to try what they did, before for something else.
Correct. And so this has been a huge process. We have been fighting the insurance company at every turn because they keep saying, we're going to these wonderful doctors at Duke who are world-renowned immunologists who are saying, we need to try this. And the insurance company is saying, well, that's not on my computer screen logarithm for how to treat an allergy. And so, so it's been very, very frustrating. So part of the process, I'll just kind of do a quick run through of what they have tried, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
So initially we tried antihistamine. So they tried Benadryl, we tried Claritin, we tried Allegra twice a day. Those things didn't work. At that point, they did oral steroids for 7 days, which did calm down the skin reactions. But if your type 1's ever been on steroids, his blood sugars were 500 and 600s, and it's like insulin was water. And you would give a dose. I would add 2 units to every dose, and his blood sugars would never come down. So that was not a long-term fix. They tried to mix. We tried mixing steroids in with the insulin. So every pod, I would pull up X units of insulin and X amount of steroids, and we tried to infuse that. We tried injecting a shot of Novolog mixed with steroids. We tried a different long-acting injectable steroid, something that they use to treat things like croup, and we injected that into the skin and then waited an hour and put a pod on top of that. That didn't work either. At that point, the insurance company said, we can't do IVIG. It's not an approved treatment for this. We need to attempt to desensitize him to insulin. So that meant that we had to go to Duke. He was admitted on the PICU at Duke University, and they attempted to desensitize his immune system to stop responding to insulin.
Okay, before we go down that road, because I honestly, I don't really know what that means, and I definitely want to ask you. But when you're describing all the things you've had to do so far, I'm trying to imagine. I mean, my son was diagnosed right around the same age, just a little bit younger. We all know, as you listen to the podcast, that people with type 1 need insulin to live. What happens to Jack when he's getting this? Is he just super uncomfortable all the time? Is the insulin working at all when he's getting steroids? And I mean, I'm trying to understand what his comfort level, if that's even the way to put it, has been. I mean, do you mind sharing that?
No, not at all. So I will start by saying he literally, I know everybody feels this way, but he really is one of the toughest kids I have ever encountered in my life. And
no. I'll jump in and say my kid is not, my kid is a tough kid, but he's not one of these. I see the kids like your kid who are the hero kids and say, he never flinches and it doesn't hurt. And not every kid is like that. I mean, I love my kid. He's a great kid, but he's, there have been a lot of fears. Yeah. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but no, you go right ahead and brag on him.
Yeah, he really is an awesome kid, and it does hurt. And he, he is also a very empathetic kid, and he worries about me, and he worries about his dad. So he will sometimes try to hide his pain. And so we had to really talk to him about, Jack, you need to let us know, because we can't report it to the doctors, and we can't tell them what's going on if you're not telling us. And so we started just kind of using the 0 to 10 point scale. And every injection, I would say, he would kind of grimace, and I would say, okay, 0 to 10, buddy, how bad was that one? And lots of them were 8s or 9. And when Jack says something is 8 or 9 on a 10-point scale, it's probably my 25 on a 10-point scale, because he is just a super stoic, always has been, kid. I don't know where he gets it from, but he truly is. But so the pain, is immediate, and then it's okay as long as you don't touch that site and, until it goes away. But like I said, some of these are lasting 24 to 48 hours, where every time you touch that arm or leg or whatever, and this is an 8-year-old kid who plays basketball and goes to school and, has an older sister that he plays with. And so it's been awful. And as far as the absorption, we had been increasing basal rates and increasing carb coverage and increasing sliding scale. And so most of the time he wasn't absorbing as well. And then just randomly he would get this big burst of good absorption, and then we would go really, really low. So there have been a couple times in this journey where we'll get a 40 out of nowhere with like no warning. And you look back and go, what in the world? Why did that injection absorb and the last 10 didn't absorb? And they really can't tell us why. Don't really know. But I am a nurse. I think I said that in the beginning. And so I've just been, he's had an around-the-clock nurse. Honestly, most nights we've had to give a couple injections through the night because his blood sugars would soar
do you think
overnight. And
I wonder, do you think that you being a nurse has made this harder in some ways? Obviously you can make it easier in some ways. You're so knowledgeable, but sometimes knowing what you know can make things more difficult.
Absolutely. Yes. A little bit of knowledge is a terrible thing, they say. And yes, because I do know all the bad things that could happen. And at one point, Dr. Piper was really honest with me on the phone, and she said, I don't know how we're going to treat this, but she said, I'm just going to be honest with you. The words bone marrow transplant have been mentioned. And I just need you to know that, we don't know how we're going to stop his immune system from reacting to this. So at that point, I had a full-blown panic attack. I'm just going to be honest. Full-blown panic attack. And so, I am strong, and I have to be, but at the same point, this is my baby. And, when you go to Duke and they look at you and say, we have no idea how we're going to treat this. We've never seen this before. Our colleagues have never seen this before. They've talked to doctors at Stanford and Harvard and the Diabetes Research Institute and Jaclyn. And they've even been talking to a doctor in New Zealand who treated a little girl with something similar. And they look at you and say, we're going to try these things, but we've never seen this before, and we really don't know what's going to work.
I can't, I will, we were all thinking this as we listen. It's hard to even imagine. So, your reaction and your health is another thing that we really cannot, I can't put myself in your shoes. I can try to understand, but I cannot. Can you take us to where I stopped you there? Can you take us to when you were admitted to Duke, which I think was for the first time when they tried desensitization?
Yeah, so desensitization is weird, and it's fairly a new thing. And so you only hear about someone when you attempt to desensitize somebody. I've known of one person who had a severe bee allergy, like to the point where she was stung walking into work, and they gave her 4 different EpiPens, and they still had to intubate her.
Oh my gosh.
So it was, a deadly allergy. And so what they do basically is they admit you in a PICU setting, in a controlled environment, and they introduce your body to whatever you're responding to, and they try to get your immune system to stop responding. is basically what they try to do. And so when Jack started having these bad reactions and nobody really knew, you're not supposed to be alert, you're not supposed to be able to be allergic to insulin, they called us in an EpiPen was one of the first steps, because they said, we don't think he's going to go anaphylactic, but we don't know, what's going to happen. So they attempted to desensitize him to insulin, and they warned me before we went that they didn't think it was going to work, because people that are desensitized to things, they have that type 1 hypersensitivity that I talked about earlier, that normal, I'm allergic to bees, I get stung, I break out in hives, I stop breathing, those sort of things. And, Jack's is a much more delayed, later response, and it's not causing, so the pain and the swelling and all of that, it's right around the injection site. Like, you can tell what's causing it. It doesn't go, to anywhere else in his body. So they admitted us. We were there for 4 days, and it was absolutely awful. They took him off all insulin and then slowly titrated him up on IV insulin. And he had never had IV insulin. We were blessed that we've never been in DKA, so they didn't know if he would have an internal reaction. So, they had epi drawn up, and it's like your worst nightmare imagined. And then nothing happened. So they titrated him up. He was on his full basal dose. Nothing happened, except that he was absorbing way super well. And so he bottomed out. They had to push D10 4 times to keep him from bottoming out. So it was an absolute nightmare. They checked his blood sugar every 30 minutes for 40 hours. It was a nightmare. So we went through all of that and then started back on the pump and reacted immediately.
Now, had you gone home at that point when you started on the pump, or were you still there?
No, we were still there.
Okay.
We were still there. They wanted us to do it in a controlled environment. So we, started back on the pump. He got bolus. It hurt. We removed it. And, the red, not all of the same things. So we switched back to injections, and they saw, 2 injections did the exact same thing. And so at that point, they said, we're going to go back to the insurance company and we're going to fight for this IVIG. I guess IVIG is thousands of dollars every time you infuse it. And like I say, the insurance company says it doesn't fit their...
Right, where's the code for this? How do we put this in the computer, like you said?
Well, that's exactly what I said. I'm like, laugh out loud. Did you ask them how to treat it? Because we're all ears. Like, we're open to suggestions, people, because, it doesn't fit any of your boxes. Like, that's the whole point, right? But anyway, insurance is a wonderful thing, but it can be extremely frustrating as a parent when the insurance company, some guy in a cubicle, is telling the immunologist at Duke how she should manage your child. Frustrating is not even the word.
Oh, I can't imagine.
But
that you're still walking around upright, and making sense and talking to me. Good gosh.
Barely.
Oh.
Barely.
So the next step is that you're going back to Duke to try this?
So actually the last step, when we left Duke, they put him on an immunosuppressive drug, which is what I was trying to avoid more than anything. But so they did put him on, called Sandimmune. It's basically a drug that they give people after they've received a transplant. So they said, we're basically trying to tell his immune system to quit attacking the insulin. So he was on that for 10 days and still had the reactions. So when that failed, at that point they said, we want you to see our dermatologist at Duke. So we went back to Duke again. I think we've been 6 times at this point. They did another biopsy of his skin. So they, took a chunk of his skin to look under the microscope. They're looking for something different than what the doctors in Concord looked for. And then, yes, this Thursday we go to try the IVIG, and we pray and hope that it's going to work.
So you're going in on Thursday, and Jack's birthday is Sunday.
Yes.
Will he be in the hospital for that?
So the plan is, I say air quotes.
Right, who knows?
The plan is, right? The plan is for it to infuse over 12 hours as an outpatient. So we're supposed to go, March the 2nd is when we're supposed to go. We're supposed to be there. They want to have the IV started. They want to start the infusion by 8 a.m. And so this IVIG it's a miracle product. It's really good stuff, but it also has really bad side effects, which we lived through when Jack had to receive it when he had his ITP. So Kids do get nausea and vomiting. They get severe headaches. They get, Jack got really low blood sugars during the infusion. So having that knowledge and him have already had it infused in the past, I kind of know what to watch for. And this time we do have the CGM that'll kind of keep me ahead of things. But they're going to pre-treat him with Zofran, Toradol, which is an IV form of Motrin, Zofran for nausea, and Benadryl IV to try to prevent him from reacting. But so this miracle drug is not without. I'm a nervous wreck about it too. I know we need to try it, but it comes with its own set of risks as well.
And forgive my ignorance, is it the kind of thing that they're telling you that if it works, is it a one and done, or is it something that he'd have to continue to be treated for, or nobody knows?
So they have no idea, and they're really honest with me about it. They hope it's a one and done. It was a one and done with his ITP, but this IVIG is also used for people who have lupus, who have rheumatoid arthritis, who have other autoimmune type things, and those patients do get it every 4 to 6 weeks. So they honestly don't know. We don't know.
This may be an odd place to ask this, but I keep thinking about his older sister, who you've mentioned a couple times. How is Maddie doing? Yeah. She's 11. I mean, she's an older sister, but she's still a little kid herself. How's she doing?
Yeah, so she's absolutely amazing, and it is hard. It is hard being the healthy kid. And I have always, since diagnosis, tried really hard to make sure she has that one-on-one time with both of us, with both parents, and, making sure that she feels important and validated. And she is very in tune with my emotions. And so, I've been trying to keep my emotions in check, but she knows that I'm worried and that I'm not my normal, happy, funny, singing self. So she started a long time ago leaving me a card by my bed every night. And so she makes me a card every night, and it's by my bed every night. And it's been going on for, I guess, since right after New Year's. And when we went to Duke, she kept saying, "How many days are you going to be gone?" I'm like, "Hey, Mimi's going to be here with you. Don't worry, I don't know." And she was like, "No, how many days might you be gone?" And I said, at the most, maybe 5. And so I got there and I opened my suitcase, and she had put 5 letters, 5 cards in there, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, because she wanted me to have one every day we were there. So she's amazing. And she got kids at school to make cards for Jack. And so when we got home, she had this whole big shoebox full of cards that kids had made for Jack. So she's amazing.
That's just wonderful.
I know I'm biased, but she's really amazing.
Yeah, well, it's good to be biased. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have received, it looks to me, and we're in a local Facebook group together. You don't live far from me at all. Yes. And we're in some other groups together. And I've seen the outpouring, it seems, from people from around the country and around the world who have seen this story. And I think there's a frustration in that people want to help and don't know what to do. But the reaction has been pretty incredible. Have you been surprised at what's happened?
I've been blown away. So someone suggested, I posted it in a couple sites just to say, has anybody dealt with this? Because the doctors have no clue, and somebody somewhere must have, dealt with this somewhere. And so I read every medical journal article that I could find, trying to find anybody. And, it's crazy. Facebook is crazy because, like, somebody said, well, I know of a mom of a kid in the UK, and here's his story, and let me get you in contact with her. So I've spoken to Taylor's mom in the UK. His story is similar to Jack's, but different in that he started reacting to the very first injection of insulin right at diagnosis. And so that's why Jack's case is so weird, that nobody can understand that, he should already be desensitized to insulin because he's been on insulin for 6 years. So nobody can explain why all of a sudden his immune system has said, okay, wait, this is a foreign invader. We don't like this insulin. So I started talking with her. Then I found another family who had started in California and now lives in South Carolina. And I just kind of thought, we need to put this out there because there must be other families out there that we don't know about, and maybe we can help each other. And so, I've been communicating with those moms, and then, I've gotten other adult type 1 diabetics who have said, my situation is similar, and this is my story, and this is how I'm dealing with it. And so the cases are out there, but they're so rare and they're so spread out that I think, that connection is not being made with physicians to kind of figure out, how to connect it all and come up with a cure. And then my messenger started blowing up, and people just kept saying, we heard the story and how can we help? And really, I just got so overwhelmed. There was one Sunday afternoon that I sat there and I told my husband, I'm like, I need a secretary. Like, I want to respond to everybody, but I can't respond to everybody and still take care of all the stuff I need to do, as a wife and a mother and working full time. So that's when I came up with starting the page for Jack, so that I could kind of put updates in one place, but make it a public page where anyone who was interested could view it, because we are an open book. And, I am a nurse, and I was a nurse before Jack was diagnosed. And, I took his diagnosis really, really hard. But then quickly realized that I have to believe that there has to be some greater reason why my Jack was chosen. There just has to be. And so, I really try in my personal life and in my professional life to help others and spread awareness and spread, education and support, because, this is the club that nobody wants to join. So, we have to band together and work together. But so we started this page, and then people just started saying, what can we do? And I said, well, it would lift his spirits if he got a card, and then the cards started pouring in, and he was like, Mom, I got one from this state, and I got one from this state, and I got one from this state. He's like, we should print out a map and keep track of what states we're getting it from. And so then it kind of turned into a game where we're down to these 5 states, or we're down to, these 10 states. And so now we're down to one state. We have the entire map colored in except for New Mexico. We've gotten stuff from Alaska and Hawaii. We've gotten stuff from Canada and the UK and the Vatican and France. And I mean, it's crazy.
Come
right?
on, New Mexico. You can do this.
I know. Well, I have word that something is in the mail, because we were like North Dakota. We thought it was going to be our last one, but we got North Dakota. So now we're just waiting on New Mexico. But so I feel like it's coming in. But people just want to help, and they, it's been so great. He's gotten such cute little care packages, hand-drawn cards from other type 1s saying, my name is this, and I'm, this old, and I have type 1 as well. And, it's amazing, the outpouring of support. And then we got a local legend, Ryan Reed, heard Jack's story, and we actually were at a basketball game, and my husband says, NASCAR driver Ryan Reed just texted me, and I'm like, what? So he was like, I'm local. I'd love to meet Jack. I read his story. Would you be willing to bring him to meet me? And so we met him, and he was amazing, and just kind of walked Jack around and said, when I was diagnosed, they told me I would never race again. And, look at me now. I am racing. And he just won Daytona on Saturday. Yep. So, so we are blown away by the support and the love and the outpouring of love that we've received has just been amazing.
Tell me about Be Like Jack, because
yeah.
I saw you talking about that when you were at Duke last time. I love that.
So it really, the nurses at Duke started saying it because, in the PICU normally, you're pretty sick to be there. So, they're used to their patients, feeling terrible and, not wanting to be poked every 30 minutes and, just not being because you would never know to look at Jack, right? You would never know what's going on with him if you didn't know. And so one nurse just kind of said, I wish everybody could be like Jack. And I said, I wish I could be more like Jack, because in the beginning we were in a semi-private room. And so that first night it was absolute torture every 30 minutes, and his blood sugar kept bottoming out, and they kept having to push D10. And so then the next afternoon around 1 o'clock, he had gotten lunch and he had been dosed. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to get a 2-hour nap, like a solid nap. And our semi-private room mother had different plans for the afternoon. And so they were having a party, and there was this little curtain in between. I looked at Jack and I'm like, I wish she would be quiet. And he looked at me and he was like, Mom, it's not her fault. She doesn't know we were up all night. And I thought, oh my Lord, how is it an 8-year-old is more mature than his 37-year-old mother? I can't even explain this little human being. He just, who says that? He's just the most empathetic, and he selfless. Like, I can't even put into words what his little spirit is. I mean, who says that? Like, it's not her fault, Mom. And then you think, I'm the worst human in the world because my 8-year-old is like way more mature about this than me, because I'm just wanting to yell and say, turn down Maury Povich. I need to take a nap, lady. I've been up all night. So, the nurses were just kind of like, I wish everybody could be like Jack. And I'm like, not just kids. Like, we should all just have that spirit of, it's not her fault. She can't help it. She doesn't know we were up all night. And, yes, it stinks that you're poking me every 30 minutes, but it is what it is. And, he never complained. He never complained. IVs went bad and he had to get stuck again. And he just, he didn't like it, but I don't know. I don't know how to explain the kid that he is, but I try every day to be more like Jack, every day.
I would imagine that there's so many people who want to help that you're also getting a lot of suggestions that, frankly, you can't really use. I don't want to put anybody in a bad light. As you say, everybody really means well. But at this point, do you sort of feel like you've heard it all? Do you still go through all the responses and try to read because who knows? Or are you kind of, is it difficult at this point to look through all the suggestions?
So they've kind of died down at this point, to be honest. In the beginning, it got extremely overwhelming. And I really have to give some props to Beyond Type 1. Beyond Type 1 reached out to me to ask to do Jack's story, and they kind of helped me when all the suggestions came pouring in through their site, to kind of put it in a like a document that we could all update. I don't know what you call that, like a Google Doc where we could all kind of update, and they kind of helped me to organize it. And, no, there are no bad suggestions. And, we heard lots of well-meaning people who said, well, maybe you should go no carb and, just severely limit his carbs, which we had already kind of been doing in the most part, but that still didn't. He still needed long acting, and he still needed, you know what I mean? Like, even if you do low carb, you still need some insulin, and so, the inhaled insulin was brought up a bunch, and everything that was viable, I brought to the doctors. And, we did actually talk about trying the inhaled insulin, Afreeza, but it's not perfect either. I mean, it comes in 4 units and 8 units, and, a kid like Jack normally gets 2 to 3 units every meal, because he doesn't require a lot of insulin. So then it turned into, are we going to be stuffing him full of empty carbs that he doesn't want or need to try to hit that 4 unit magic mark? And then if he does want to eat something else, what do you do when you need 5.5 units? I mean, it's a good product, but it's not very child friendly. You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but Jack never eats exactly the same amount of carbs 3 times a day. Yeah, right?
No, I don't know enough about it. I'm in contact with the folks who make Afreeza, and I'd like to have them on to talk about it more, because I'm not sure it's exactly like that. I think it's a little bit more, I think you can round up and down more, but I shouldn't speak on it because I don't know at this point. But I'm sure if that's something that becomes an option that the doctors want you to try, I mean, we'll see where the road takes you at this point. But no, my child never eats the same. My child does not eat the same amount of anything. Neither, but most of us don't. I mean, really, that's not how most of us eat. I guess you're eating a lot of prepackaged foods.
Right, and he's also 8, so he's very active. So he tends to graze a lot in the afternoons and evenings when he's playing outside and things. And so, it's very challenging. But they were worried about what it would do to his lung tissue, because we can see what it's doing to the subcutaneous tissue. So what would it look like in the lungs? So if we were going to try it, we were going to try it in the PICU. With all these emergency rescue meds drawn up. I mean, you talk about fear, and fear is not even the word for it. Terror. At the thought of, they literally had like the meds drawn up and laid out visibly, like, okay, we're ready to start this. So I kind of got off on a tangent there, but there are no bad suggestions, I guess I will say. I wish, and I'm just going to say it, and you can take it off if you need to, but I wish that there were more options for trials that are currently being conducted for children, because I did reach out to Dr. Faustman's lab about the BCG trial, and I did reach out to the Diabetes Research Institute about the BioHub, and I reached out to Emory University about islet cell transplants and those sort of things, because what Dr. Piper was saying was, if we get to the point where we are saying he has to have a bone marrow transplant and completely wipe out his immune system, then I'm going to fight to at least try to get him some islet cells, or try to, you know what I mean, to try to fix this. Because if we're completely eradicating his immune system, then that's the perfect time to do islet cells, because the reason they don't recommend it in children is because it requires you to be immunosuppressed, right? So if we're going to do that anyway, right. So if we're going to do that anyway, then the least we could do, is try to get that. And so I got lots of hard no's, just really hard no. He's not 18. There are no exceptions. And I'm like, there has to be a compassionate exemption for these FDA. I mean, I realize it's in trial state, but just got a lot of hard no's. And so that was terrifying. And, it's hard to understand as a parent. I mean, I understand that they have to have certain regulations, but there comes a point where, at what point is it an option for a kid that, if you're talking about wiping out his immune system? So that part has been, I think, the scariest for me and the most frustrating for me, because I don't have to tell you how long it takes for the FDA to approve something. He's turning 9 on Sunday, so do you really expect him to live like this for 9 more years?
Yeah, and let me ask you what may be clear to some people after we've been talking for now, more than 40 minutes. But just to be clear, can he live like this? I mean, you're talking about a situation where there's an obvious allergy, there's an obvious reaction, and it's uncomfortable. And I hate to even ask this, but can he continue like this? It would just be awful, but he could do it? Or is it, no, the blood sugars will just be too tough and there's just too much damage going on?
So I don't really know the answer to that either. As of right now, we're maintaining, but I will say there are certain parts of his arms where the damage is getting extensive. And so, the backs of his arms now have lost the pigmentation. It kind of looks like, if you think about Michael Jackson's skin, where it lost the dark pigment and it had that like white patches coming through. That's the back of his arms right now is hypopigmented is what they're saying. But so he does have extensive damage. So yeah, you run into the point where when we run out of viable tissue that can absorb insulin, then what? And so they've said things like, I don't know how I'm not in a padded room, because when they've said things like, we could put a port in, like, kids that get chemotherapy or whatever, like a central port in his chest wall, and you inject insulin there. We could put a PICC line in, like a long-term indwelling catheter in his arm. And, and I'm like, he was diagnosed at 2. It rocked our world, and then we quickly decided this was not going to define him. It was not going to stop him from playing basketball and baseball and being a normal 8-year-old, a normal kid. And then to say things like that, like you can't live a normal, rough and tough boy childhood with things like that. And so I guess I'm just one of those moms that keeps saying that's not good enough. Like, you're going to have to come up with something else, because that's not a viable option. His normalcy and his quality of life is paramount in my mind. So I don't know.
I hated to ask that in that way, but it just seems like it is more than a few people have asked me, as you're getting private messages, we locally and nationally, people are reaching out and saying, well, what is it really? I mean, if you've got skin damage like that, and it's obviously much more than just a bump that goes away. I mean, that's incredible. It's incredible. Yeah, so I hope that you can keep us posted. I hate to bother you as you're going through all this, but I'll touch base every now and again. Maybe after you guys are back from this next treatment, we can talk again. And do you need anything? Is there anything that the audience can help you with? Is there anything that Jack needs? Anything that Maddie wants? I mean, what can we do for you all?
I know. I really don't even know. We did have a local preschool that her son died tragically with an accidental gun accident. And so she, in his legacy, every year raises money for a different family. And so they did adopt Jack, and they did a trichathon and raised a little over $3,000 that they are going to help us with the hospital bills, because with our insurance, our out-of-pocket max is $11,500 a calendar year. So that's a lot. So they are going to help us with that. But, I've had a couple people reach out about starting a GoFundMe account, and I struggle with that because I know there are so many people that need things that I don't feel right asking for that at this point. We may get to that point where I don't have an option. Right now we're both able to still work and, have income and that sort of thing. But he loves the cards. I'm not going to lie. I mean, even if we have our map colored in, he's getting to that point where, it's kind of slowing down and it's dwindling down. And he is sad. Like today was one day where there was not a single card in the mail, and he was like, "Oh, nothing came today." So he really does love that. And things have come to Maddie as well. People have sent her things too. She loves animals of all kinds. When I say of all kinds, we've had pet lizards, frogs, rats. We've rescued rats.
Come on.
Story, but I mean, she asked the guy at the pet store what a feeder rat was, and he proceeded to tell her, and it turned into, "Oh my gosh, Mom, we have to rescue them." So yeah, we've had, they don't live very long, but we've had 7 different rats over the years, and they actually make really good pets. Cats, dogs. She would have like goats and chickens if I would let her. So she loves animals of all kinds. When I say that child has the biggest heart, she will yell at you for stomping on a spider. Like, take him outside. He wasn't hurting you. That's just the kid she is. And she's very artistic. So she loves, all things art and that sort of thing. So that always brightens their spirits. And that's really all I can think of at this point.
Well, I think
but I appreciate it.
Oh, sure, of course. And, I wish I had something better to say. As we're getting ready to wrap this up, the problem here is there really is no wrap up. I was a health reporter for many years, and usually I would talk to people when the issue was resolved.
Yes.
So we don't know what's going to happen here, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. And the community is behind you. Whether more is needed or we celebrate soon, please keep us posted so we can kind of virtually hold your hands and be part of this, because we are all thinking about you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. We really appreciate it. And my hope is I have to believe that they're going to figure this out. And I keep joking to my husband that, wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be amazing if they accidentally cure type 1 along this path? I feel like the cure is right there. Like I really and truly believe, somewhere in stem cells or some way figuring out why their immune systems attack their pancreas, the cure's there, so wouldn't it be awesome if we accidentally cure it? So that's what keeps me waking up every morning and, putting one foot in front of the other. I try to be like Jack and look at the positive and, try to focus on every joy you can find in the day and just keep fighting, just keep advocating, and just keep saying, this is not good enough and we're going to find an answer. So if you can't help me, then you tell me where to go, because, we're going to figure it out.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
More information and that Beyond Type 1 article she mentions at diabetes-connections.com. I will also link up to Jack's allergy page on Facebook so you can get updates right from the family. As I said, we are right in the middle of this story, and I will share more on our Facebook page, Diabetes Connections, as we learn more. But Jack's allergy page on Facebook really is the best place to go. As Jaclyn said, she's been inundated with people wanting to help and wanting their questions answered, and that really is the best way for her to keep everyone in the loop. If you want to send something to Jack or to Maddie, that information is on their Facebook page as well. I'm going to defer to the family to get the word out on that, not giving out their information. They have done that once or twice, so you can find it on that page. So please head over there. You can go to diabetes-connections.com and find out what you need. Man, it's unbelievable. And he really is just an incredible kid. And I feel kind of bad for what I said about Benny. I mean, he's a tough kid. He's been 10 years into type 1, and he's doing his own insets, and he's doing his own Dexcom. But I did used to laugh when he was a lot younger, because everywhere you turn, you do see these pictures of kids, and the parents always say, and he never flinched, never complained once, and never did. I don't have that kind of kid. Neither one of my kids is like that. I'm not like that. And so it always just made me chuckle a little bit because everybody's different and we all deal with these things the way we do. So that's all I'll say about that, other than I didn't mean to make my son sound like he's a big crybaby, because he's not. So do me a favor. If you like what you hear on Diabetes Connections, please share it with somebody who's touched by type 1. That's the best way to get the word out about this show. I don't talk about numbers too much, but we had the biggest month ever in February. It was really incredible, and I'm so glad that more people are finding the show, and I'm getting emails that it's helping. That's so cool. I mean, I'm just here to get the information out, and I'm glad that I can help in that way. Let me know if you'd like to hear someone that you haven't heard from in a while, or you're looking for a news update. We've got some great stuff coming up, and I'm here for you. So just email me, Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Hit me up on Facebook, and we will get it done. I'm Stacey Sims, and I'll see you back here next week.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.